And what if I have different denominations? What if I have 5s and 10s and a couple of hundreds? And most of the time maybe they get a 1 or a 5, but every once in a while they get 100. So if they never know when I'm going to notice them doing well or how much they're going to get, that's going to keep them really excited about just sitting there and waiting expectantly for me to notice them doing well. So we want to be inconsistent. They did an experiment with rats once, and this is kind of sick, but you can put an electrode in a rat's brain right at the pleasure center, and if you give it a little bit of voltage, they experience ecstasy. And so they trained these rats to push a bar and get food, and then they hooked them up to these electrodes, and every time they pushed the bar they would get that really great feeling. So they had one set of rats who every time they pushed the bar they got that feeling, and then they had another set where the rats never knew how many times they were going to have to push that bar in order to make it happen. It might be the first or the third or the 17th push. And so which rats do you think pushed the bar most often? It was the rats who never knew how many pushes it was going to take, right? So if we're wanting to use the best science has to offer to get our kids to do what we want them to do more often, we're going to be inconsistent. Another good example of this kind of behavioral science would be the slot machine. It doesn't matter, you never know which time you pull or how much you're going to get, and that's what keeps people responding more often. There's something that happens with the human interaction too that really goes beyond the science stuff for your frequency of rewarding or your types of rewards, and that's the quality of the interaction. You know, there's a big difference between, Miles, why aren't you paying attention? There's a big difference between that and the way he looks when I talk to him that way, and when I say, Miles, you know what? You're sitting there in that chair and you've been wanting to play some games and we haven't played any games yet. And I just wanted to stop for a minute and notice what a really good kid you are. You know, because you're keeping yourself in that chair and you're not complaining and you're not making any ugly looks at me. So I just wanted to let you know that I see what a terrific son you are, and I've got some bucks for you. Okay? So what we're really trying to do is we're using interaction as a reward here. And we know that when people feel rewarded, there's something that happens inside the brain. The axons and the neurons get thicker, and the dendrites, or the number of connections, increases. And I get objections sometimes to using tangible things as a reinforcer. You don't have to use tangibles, but they sure help, especially with younger boys. If you can get a bunch of junk toys, and then, you know, what you want to do is, you don't want to put examples of every category in there. You want to hold some things back. That way, when they look in there, every once in a while, there's new things that they hadn't seen before. Because otherwise, if it's the same stuff after the 4th or 5th day, you know, they've already gotten that thing. That's why so often a behavior program is not real successful, except after the first 2 or 3 weeks, because, you know, if they do good 4 out of 5 days, they get a Happy Meal, and they get their Happy Meal 2 weeks in a row. Then the 3rd week, then the Happy Meal may not be so exciting. So there again, we want to be inconsistent. We want them to never know when we're going to notice them doing well. We want them to never know what the reward is going to be or how much they're going to get. And that will keep them doing what we want the most often.